Ever since the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the so-called right to abortion, both pro-life and pro-abortion activists have been strategizing how to deal with this brave new world without Roe. One emerging frontier for the future of abortion has to do with chemical abortions. Now, Joy Stockbauer is a policy analyst for FRC's Center for Human Dignity, and she has a new column titled Unsafe, Illegal, and Far from Rare: Chemical Abortion's Online Black Market. You can find this article on FRC's new Washington Stand news outlet. If you haven't already bookmarked it, you should at washingtonstand.com. But the author, Joy Stockbauer, joins me now to discuss the article. Joy, good to see you today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, for our listeners first who may not be aware, let's catch us up. What exactly do chemical abortion pills involve?
Sure. So a chemical abortion is comprised of two specific drugs. The first one, mifepristone, cuts off a woman's supply of the hormone progesterone. And so this essentially starves the unborn child to death. And then the second drug, misoprostol, forces the woman's uterus to experience intense contractions, which will then violently expel the unborn child from its mother's womb.
Now, you talk about in this article something called Plan C. Why do you say this website is actually dangerous to women that it claims to serve?
Sure. So Plan C is a website that will connect women to online abortion vendors that will sell them abortion pills without a prescription. And so this is dangerous to women on one hand because they have no way of verifying that the drugs that they are consuming are in fact the abortion drugs that they believe they are, and not something even more dangerous. And on another hand, it's dangerous because when women use this website to work around the pro-life laws in their states, they likely will not visit a doctor to confirm that they are in fact pregnant, how far along they are in pregnancy, and whether or not they are experiencing an ectopic pregnancy, which may require emergency medical intervention.
Well, I know as we pivot to chemical abortions, one of the reasons that it's becoming popular is because it's seen as less intrusive and therefore less dangerous than surgical abortion. And of course, for abortion providers, it's certainly less expensive because they don't need a medical provider there to actually do an operation that a surgical abortion would involve. But is it true that it is safer and more painless for women?
No, this is absolutely untrue. Firstly, we know that every abortion is dangerous for the unborn child, and that's important to consider. However, chemical abortions are also very dangerous for the mother. Even many of these online abortion pill providers will readily claim and explain that over 50% of women who choose to undergo chemical abortions will experience severe pain. And so this is, on one hand, psychologically traumatizing for women. However, on the other hand, women have more serious things to be worried about than simply pain. Other complications that chemical abortion can cause include hemorrhaging, infection, retained fetal parts, and in some cases, even death.
Now, Joy, you talk about the consequences of these chemical abortions and the side effects of it. Are these a surprise to women? Are the providers of these drugs doing enough to make women aware of the risks, in your judgment?
Absolutely not. I think that the average American woman believes that because these drugs have been approved by the FDA, they are safe for consumption. However, because there is a lack of reporting requirements for complications, the FDA is not even able to actually ascertain whether or not these drugs are safe for women.
Now, one criticism of these online pharmacies is that pimps and sex traffickers use them to hide their crimes. Is that actually happening?
Yes, this is happening. Unfortunately, we know that the abortion industry has been aiding and abetting the sex trafficking industry for decades, and this is only becoming easier for them to do now that these online providers are selling drugs to women or to their pimps and traffickers without a prescription. So these websites have no way of verifying whether or not their client is in fact a woman seeking an abortion, or whether it is a pimp or a trafficker who will force a woman to undergo an abortion, sometimes without her knowledge, often without her consent, in order to continue profiting off of her body.
And that seems like an area that policymakers can get involved with, because for obvious reasons, sending these drugs that are lethal, at least to an unborn child, to people that we don't know who they are, in fact, and we haven't verified identity, has all sorts of problems. But in your article, again, which we can find at WashingtonStand.com, you refer to the chemical abortion market as a black market. Why do you say that?
I refer to it as a black market because it operates illegally. It flies directly in the face of FDA regulations, which are put in place to try to protect women. These regulations say that women need a prescription to receive these drugs, and these websites are offering these drugs without a prescription. Additionally, women are only recommended to take it through 10 weeks, but these websites will sell it to them at any point in gestation. Some of them even recommending that women can take it safely up to 13 weeks, which is simply untrue.
Joy, is that also true of the site like Plan C, which we discussed earlier? Is that a black market itself?
So it's more of a connector website that will point women to the websites that are actually willing to sell them illegal drugs.
Joy Stockbauer, we are sadly out of time, but this is a critical issue. We appreciate your research on this, and we know we will continue this conversation because it is, as you point out, a new frontier in the battle over abortion. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you for having me.